Welcome back to the Navy Sports Magazine presented by Navy Federal Credit Union. Navy Federal Credit Union is a proud supporter of Navy athletics. I'm now joined by the head coach of Navy baseball, Chuck Ristano. Chuck, thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Army looming this weekend. You already got that elusive star victory over the Black Knights earlier this season. You don't mind, let's just revisit that initial series. I remember seeing the emotion that you showed and that your players showed to get that star over the Black Knights. How did that propel your team forward this season?
It's a really interesting dynamic because it very much, and I tell our guys, this is a unique thing to us in Army that you kind of play a championship in the middle of the season, and for us this year, it happened to be really early. So you kind of look at your schedule, and it's obviously the weekend that you circle. You want to play well, and you would say that about any weekend, but you'd also be lying if you said that the Army Star Series doesn't mean quite a bit more. So yeah, we treat it like a championship, and I was happy to see us come away with it in three really hard-fought games. I think it gave a lot of our guys confidence. The older guys in the program, and I know there's not a ton of them, but there was the first time they were able to kind of bring that star back to Annapolis, and it means a lot to them, and that obviously means a lot to our program. It will not help us this weekend, but it is something that I think we're all very proud of, and we're happy to be kind of the group that brought it back.
Setting the tone, it's kind of been a theme of your first 2 years with the midshipmen. Last year, you take them to a Patriot League championship for the first time since 2019. How can this group replicate last year's success?
Well, obviously, you've got to play well, and within playing well is just doing things within the game that, baseball is such an individual performance sport. Excuse me, but the collective, things like winning the free 90 battle, running the bases aggressively, obviously playing high-level fundamental defense. These were some things that I think they came a little easier to us last year with such a veteran group because we have so many new faces in the lineup and a lot of the familiar faces are playing different positions. It took a while for us to gel. I'm hoping we're starting to hit our stride now, and we're hopefully getting some guys back from injury. But obviously, it just begins with controlling the game from the mound and then finding a way to play just clean offensive and defensive baseball.
You want to talk about boys who hit the ground running. Tai Deperno just got Patriot League Rookie of the Year. What impressed you the most about the way that he really starred early on here in Annapolis?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be the first to tell you, it was a crowded catching situation coming into the year with Jack Killelay and Mac McCommons kind of having had the lion's share of the opportunity prior to Ty's arrival. Killelay kind of being hurt to begin the season opened the door for Ty to get that kind of opportunity. And when he did, he kind of just ran with it. He's been obviously a really important offensive player for us, hitting in the middle of the lineup, but he's done a really good job defensively. It's not an easy thing to ask a freshman catcher to catch as often as he does, but he's obviously done a really good job for us, and I'm glad that he was rewarded with that honor.
And you are no stranger to elite pitching at the college level, but Landon Kruer, he's a first-team All-Patriot League reliever. When this guy comes in the game, for you and your staff, it has to feel like oftentimes this thing's over. What has he meant to you and your program?
Yeah, I mean, there's something to the guy who can record the last 3 or 6 outs in the game. It begins with just, kind of attitude and personality. He's kind of an aggressive personality, and I mean that in a good way. He's a guy that you want to hand the ball to, and there's really no situation he doesn't believe he can pitch out of, and he's usually right. We're obviously going to miss him terribly, but having him kind of lurking in the back of your bullpen, not only does it feel good when you hand him the baseball, but it probably changes the way other teams have to manage their personnel against us, knowing that we've got somebody who's as capable of Landon in the back end.
You've taken some teams on some pretty special runs, most notably when you took Notre Dame to Omaha. What have those experiences taught you as you try and propel Navy here on another deep run?
Yeah, I mean, I think you just go back to the basics and you stay process-oriented and you try to maintain even emotions. something that I saw, and this is actually, I think, a Marcus Freeman Notre Dame quote, although I didn't hear it from him firsthand. When you talk about managing emotions, sometimes we talk about the thought after the thought. So when something bad happens, whether you're in the middle of an at bat, whether you've made a bad pitch, everybody has an immediate reaction about, hey, that pitch is not a strike, or man, that was a bad pitch. And that's human nature. You can't really control the impulsivity of that. But what we can control is like the very next thought and the very next action. So it's something we talk about quite a bit, is like, hey, it's okay to have that impulse as long as it comes and goes, and your next thought is about being task oriented and what you have to do next. So obviously managing emotions, playing with confidence, even if things are not going your way, and then just understanding everybody has a role to play, whether it's the guy that's catching in the bullpen, getting our reliever ready, whether it's the guy who comes into the pinch run. I can't say when each person's moment is going to arrive, but being prepared to meet that moment, 1 through 39 on our roster, has been really important for our success, because we've had to call on a lot of different combinations of personnel, and it's been really rewarding to watch that, to watch us kind of arrive in the same place we did a year ago at the end of the regular season. It was a wildly different path. Last year, the lineup kind of stayed intact for the entirety of the season, and this year it had been there had been a lot of fluctuations. It was a lot harder task to get here, but it does feel a little more rewarding that so many more people contributed.
You kind of alluded to it at the end there, but what for you has been the most fulfilling part about year two of head coach Navy?
First and foremost, again, just what it took to get here. And by no means are we satisfied with where we are. We absolutely, the two goals in the program are to beat Army in the Star Series and to win a championship. I'm glad to check one of those boxes off. I'm hoping to check another, but it didn't come easy to this group. It's a freshman and sophomore dominated class or team. So it's been fun to watch so many guys get thrust into situations they may not have thought they'd be in. Putting Andrew Manning in center field, or Mason Ceccarelli, and we've got Owen Peterson in and out, Henry Mitchell having to move to shortstop, Evan Brown moving to third base, DePerno obviously catching. That's been fun to watch those guys meet that moment. The other piece of me, and it's kind of unique to the one class, it's been really fun for me to watch the evolution of our current sophomores. They're the group that I didn't know much about when I took the job, and they were the freshmen. And when you're young at the academy, you have a whole mess of assimilation. The academic piece, the military piece, and of course Division I baseball. Being a Division I baseball player as a freshman is challenging enough. Doing it here with all of the other variables in play and the other challenges that you have to meet every day, watching them evolve from some guys who really struggled in the classroom or struggled with their time demands, to being kind of cornerstone pieces in our program, that's been particularly fulfilling. Of course, winning the Star here was a fun moment, and I'm glad to have that piece of Navy history with our guys. But obviously, we've got a job to do now, and we're task-oriented in playing the best baseball we can and beating our rival.
Absolutely. Well, Coach, two more for you. First, AD Czech Gladchuk announced he's retiring at the end of this year. He brought you in, another proven winner, as Navy continues to build up all of its athletic programs. What does he mean to you and your continued development as a coach?
Yeah, I'm going to miss him terribly. You always want to kind of dance with the person who brought you to the dance, right? I remember my very first phone call, when we were talking about the unique properties, and if it aligned, if what I wanted to be as a coach aligned with what Navy wanted in a coach. And it became a really, really nice marriage. Chet has been wildly supportive of our program. There's nothing that we ask for that he doesn't give us. And he checks in a lot, after difficult games, after big successes, there's always a text on my phone. He's been, obviously boss, but he's also been tremendous supporter and mentor. And I'm sorry that I'll only get, 2 years with him. I know he'll make sure that our athletic department is in great hands. But um, he's given me something that gifts that I'll never be able to repay, and my family and I will be are eternally thankful for him bringing us here and letting me wear the blue and gold.
Lastly, this might bring us full circle because you could well point to that Star Series victory. But was there a singular moment this year that gives you confidence that this team is capable of winning a Patriot League title?
I would say there's not a singular moment because there have been so many evolutions and so many iterations of our lineup. I think the thing that gives me confidence is there are a lot of names who, sometimes I say it jokingly with the players. Like, I don't know who's going to put the cape on today. Maybe it's Mason Ceccarelli and he puts the cape on and gets hit by a couple of pitches that result in RBIs. Or maybe it's Brady Bendick who, deservedly got named all conference, and maybe he goes a complete game shutout like he did against Army in the Star Series, up there in our series at West Point. There have been so many guys who've put the cape on that it's fun for me to try and imagine who's going to be most chiefly responsible for our performance on a given day. But the fact that we can get those types of contributors from virtually anybody, those types of contributions, from virtually anybody on the roster has given me a tremendous amount of belief. And that's why I think we're in a really good position to go and do this thing. Obviously, it's got to be one game at a time and one inning and one pitch at a time. And they're doing the same thing we are. The margin is pretty razor thin when Army and Navy play each other, regardless of what the records are. So they'll come in here and we'll get their best and they'll get ours. And, I feel good about our chances.
Awesome. Chuck, thank you so much for your time this morning. Really appreciate it. And best of luck this weekend.
All right, Tim. Thanks so much.